that right? Hi. If you're watching this, you're probably in an IFW.
Only probably.
Only probably. You might not be. You might just be fixing your flying. Sure. Great. So today we're talking about Cody Kicks and how Cody Kicks relate to flying, what is a Cody Kick, and how does one do a Cody Kick. So we'll start with the basics of what is a Cody Kick.
First thing about a Cody Kick, it's not actually a kick, which, if you have ever heard me talk about flying trapeze, you are not even slightly surprised that I have said that. Because as with pretty much everything in trapeze, if you're thinking about moving your legs and not the rest of your body, you're not doing it properly. So Cody Kick is the motion with your pelvis and your back going from slightly arched and behind to rounded back and pelvis in front of you. So it's that quick snap from body back to body in. All right. If you're thinking about doing a kick of your legs, which is a very common thing because lots of times when we practice the Cody Kick, it's either from a stomach drop on trampoline or hawks off where your legs are bent before you do the quote unquote Cody Kick. That doesn't mean your power is coming from your legs. If you're doing it from your legs, that's part of the reason why it may not be as productive as it could be.
So when you're doing a Cody Kick, you're really not thinking about bringing your the mass of your legs in front of you. You're thinking about it only coming from your pelvis. Because and like Kyle said, if you've worked with him, if you've worked with me, you know that I talk about pelvis a lot. And there's a good reason for it. It's that you could do flying trapeze without any legs. You do not need them. Everything comes from the pelvis. That's what the Cody Kick is. It is an action of the pelvis that kind of just is followed by the legs. Think of your pelvis as the manager of your legs. Your legs have to do what your pelvis says, but your pelvis does not have to do what your legs say. So if you just move your legs, your body might not follow. If you move your pelvis, everything else is going to try to come with it. So our next kind of brain thought is, why are we doing Cody Kicks? The big reason for a Cody Kick, the use of a Cody Kick, is to generate backwards rotation. Okay? Flying trapeze can be broken down simply into 3 movement patterns: backwards rotation, forwards rotation, and twisting. Cody Kicks generate your backwards rotation. That's going from an arched position to the snapped hollow position, brings all of your weight from behind you to in front of you, which brings your hips in. If you dramatize it and make it the biggest Cody Kick of your life, it'll bring your hips up over your head and make you rotate backwards. A lot of people will do backwards rotation using just their legs, so tucking into a ball, piking, throwing their legs over their head. All that is doing is speeding up whatever small rotation you have gotten from the momentum of your legs swinging forward. If you start using your pelvis to create backwards rotation and you only use your pelvis, you'll get a lot of power and not a lot of speed. The bending of the knees, the piking of the legs, all that should come secondary to the Cody Kick to increase your speed and aim your direction.
So another thing which we touched on a little bit in the what is a Cody Kick is the reason why we do a Cody Kick is to get your center of mass moving. All right. So as I was saying, if you're just kicking your legs, that's not where your weight is. So yes, you can do a strong enough kick of your legs that you will get your body moving, but it's going to be incredibly inefficient. So the reason why we do a Cody Kick is so that we take your center of mass, where most of your energy is stored, from being in whatever position you were in, using that potential energy from where your body is centered and putting it in a new direction. So the kick, the pike, the tuck, whatever you're doing to speed your rotation, you still may want to do depending on what trick you're working on, but you need to be doing that after you have gotten your center of mass moving. So it's you do the Cody Kick to get your center of gravity, center of mass moving in the proper direction so that then you can manipulate it with a tuck, with a pike, or even just by staying straight to maintain that directionality, all right? Without your center of mass moving, everything is just a little bit unproductive. You'll hear me talk about this all the time. I will continue to talk about it forever because it's always about productivity. Another thing you'll hear me say a lot is I'm incredibly lazy. So I want any motion I do to be as productive as possible so that I don't have to work as hard. So if I am doing a good Cody Kick where I'm moving the my proper mass point around the bar, I don't have to work very hard to rotate because I've already done the work efficiently. If you do a huge kick without your center of mass and then try to create your rotation, you have to work so much harder. We don't want to do that. We want a nice strong Cody Kick to create, the platform to do whatever we want easier. So that's why we Cody Kick.
That sounded so capitalist.
Yeah, no, I'm a product of my environment. Anyway.
No.
We're now going to move on to our next topic, which is how do we Cody Kick? Which again, this is all kind of building on each other, so we've already started to have this conversation, but the most basic of how do we Cody Kick is it's not legs. Al's going to give us a lovely demonstration of exactly what it is, but it's that pelvis movement starting from a lower ab engagement, pulling your body around.
Starts from a lower al engagement.
Also true.
Okay, so I am now much taller than Kyle. It's exciting. I'm now going to attempt not to kick Kyle while doing a Cody Kick. So all you can see right now is from my armpits to my lower legs. And that's actually all you need to know about for the Cody Kick because it has nothing to do with these things. It's all about the pelvis. So when you are in an extended position with your legs behind you, right now my hips are flat in the front and they're going to stay flat in the front the whole time. I could keep my hand in the same position, and when I do the Cody Kick, my hand would not bend, my hand would not move, it would just shift positions, okay? So a Cody Kick goes from this extended position of the spine where I have a slight arch in my back, it's tight, I'm still engaged through my core, I'm not loose and arched, I'm engaged, I'm extended. This is your sweep back, this is your present in a lot of your positions before having to backward rotate to the net. This is also your landing position on the trampoline if you're going to do a Cody Kick. Full extended core, spine, here. Then I think about taking my iliac crest, which is this top bony part of my hip, and pulling them up towards my ribs and tipping my pelvis from backwards to forwards, okay? So if you think of your pelvis as a bowl of water, right now my pelvis is pouring water out the front. I want it to tip and pour it out the back. So we're here, and the Cody Kick is snap. It's literally just from here to here. My leg is moving simply because it is still attached to my hip bone. I could not Cody Kick and keep my leg behind me. It'd be very hard because that anatomy doesn't work that way. So my leg travels with me in my Cody Kick. It is not this. I'm not bending at the hip. I'm keeping that hip flat and snapping to a hollow. It comes through the entire front of my body, scooped out and shortened core. Okay, so it's here to here. Notice how I didn't kick Kyle the entire time. That's because I didn't do a kick.
So that leads us to our final topic of how do we practice Cody Kicks? All right, because as with anything in flying trapeze, if you only are practicing it in your exact moment that you want to be getting it perfect, chances are you're not going to be too productive because we can only have so many reps on the trapeze, and you can do a lot more things on the ground, on the trampoline, and times on the trapeze where you're not doing the exact moment thing that you want to be doing. So, first way to practice, conditioning exercises. These are really easy. You can do them wherever you want, and can teach your body how to engage what you need to engage. We will either have a link or Al will send things out separately.
Like with the reason, and the reason why we do conditioning and have all these ways to practice your Cody kick and whatever skill you are working on the ground is because when you're in the air, if you've flown for any length of time, you'll know what I mean when I say that flying blackout, where you're midair, you do your trick, you come down, and your coach says, "What were you thinking about? What did you see? Did you think about the thing I asked you to?" And you go, "I don't know." We all have done it. And that's because it's hard to think when you are throwing your body through the air 20 feet high or more. So when you practice them on the ground, you're not thinking about all of the other things like your landing, your present, what trick you're doing, if the lines person is there for you, if the lines are in your way, if your grip is on the bar, all the things that we're thinking about when we're flying, which lead to the flying blackout. All those things, get rid of them. It's like doing an experiment. You've got to get down to the core of what you're looking for and teach your body the movement so that it becomes natural and is instinctual, so that when you do it in the air, it's not something you have to think about, and it happens when you're in your flying blackout.
That is our in-depth explanation of why we're doing all of these things to practice, which, yes, always practice things. So we talked about conditioning. The next biggest way, and it's frankly where the skill gets its name from, is trampoline, where a proper Cody is a front drop, land on your stomach, kick through, full rotation, back to your back?
I think it's to your stomach.
Or to your stomach again. Yeah, to your stomach again.
We're not trampoline artists.
Yeah, we're not. So the basic idea is you're doing a front drop and kicking through to create a ton of rotation. I think it's actually to your feet. Is it to your feet?
I don't know. I have never done a Cody kick.
Yeah.
A Cody on the trampoline.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be able to do it either.
Yeah. The kick for the Cody is the same whether or not you're actually doing a Cody. So easiest way to practice it on the trampoline is by just doing a front to back, where you land on your stomach in that body position which Al was talking about before and was showing you, and then you kick through by doing this snap and just stay straight until you get to your back. No tucking whatsoever.
And the kick through that we are talking about is literally just your knees going from bent to straight. It has nothing to do with the leg's attachment point to the pelvis. It does have to do with the pelvis and the hips, which sometimes you will hear us say like, "Oh, it has nothing to do with the hips." That means it has nothing to do with the attachment point of your femur to your pelvis, but it has everything to do with the pelvis. So when you land and you do that kick, it is just a straightening of the legs to help to create that directionality in your rotation.
Exactly. So it's a great thing to drill there. And this is one of those things where, frankly, when you're starting this, you're going to have to do it reasonably high so you have enough time to rotate. But once you get more comfortable with this and you start to understand it, the best way to make sure you are doing it right is literally stand up, jump to your stomach, and pull through right away. So you are really low, so you have to really pull through by getting this strong Cody kick to pull yourself around. It also makes it very easy to rep because you just do it, you stand, you do it once, you stand back up, you do it again. You don't have to be doing intermediate bounces where you can get lost. It's just a quick stomach pull through, stomach pull through. And yeah, that's how we practice on trampoline.
Yeah. There are also really good ways to practice the Cody kick in flying trapeze, because that's why we're all here, isn't it? To do flying trapeze, not to do trampoline or conditioning. Those things just help us. Pretty much anything that you do on the flying trapeze that needs any sort of backwards rotation, no matter how small, can use a Cody kick. Even just a bullet drop, you can utilize a Cody kick from the hang straight, slight Cody pelvis, that will rotate you that just enough to get to your back. The swing from your sweep back to your force out, that's a Cody kick. from your sweep back to your 7. That's a Cody kick. In a backflip, kick forward. We are actually kicking in a backflip, forwards, backwards, but that second forward kick doesn't have to be a full kick. You'll see us do it as just like a lazy kick, but in reality, if you wanted to get an actual high, smooth backflip, you'd use your Cody kick, that sweep back to that tuck around. Any sort of backwards rotating trick like a layout, a salto, and then you just add on tucks to the layout and you got all those backwards rotating tricks. But the most important one, and the one that you can practice the best, and the one that we can see you mess up the best, is a hawks-off. So a lot of times when we learn hawks-offs, you'll either learn them to rotating to your back just because you lift your chest off and the rotation just happens, or some schools teach them as a stomach drop miss with a half turn miss to your back. What I will often have you do, and what you will focus on, is doing a slow hawks off where you don't rotate at all. You'll probably rotate a bit, but it's doing a slow hawks off where you don't generate any rotation from your chest and you don't generate any rotation from your legs. Then we add on that Cody kick off the bar, which is exactly what Cody kick you do on the trampoline. It's that bent knees, snap to straight, tuck the pelvis. And then you're doing a straight body rotation to your back. And that is probably one of the best places to practice a Cody kick that will feed into your flying. Because that Cody kick leads to hawk saltos. That Cody kick leads to understanding how to snap your hips backwards to forwards when you're up in the air. And it also leads into knowing how to get to your back out of a trick where you've stalled out. What you have to think about in those moments is, how do I get my pelvis underneath me? And that's where the hawks off comes in. You're going from that arched out, stalled out position to getting your pelvis underneath you. And that's why it's important, is it feeds into bigger tricks, it feeds into more complex tricks, and it becomes an instinctual habit. And that's what we want with all of this and all of the skills that we talk about, is we want these to become habits. We want it to be something that you don't have to think about, and something that when you do think about it, you're understanding what you're thinking about. That you're understanding, the reason why I couldn't get to my back this time was because I left my hips behind me. You don't even have to think of Cody kick. You just have to think, I left my hips behind me. How do I get my center of gravity, or my mass, in front of me? Pelvis. So that's my 2 cents on the Cody kick. Any final words?
Nah.
All right. Yeah. So do your conditioning. Come to class. And we're going to focus on some Cody kicks. See you there.